Okay, this rock will hold it down near the water. It'll actually start to sink in like a day, less than a day. I never had one explode. Had them leak a little bit. I think it's kind of perfect. This top doesn't have any rubber gasket in it, but it does fit kind of flush with this. And uh-oh, I might not be able to tighten it with this so close. Barely. But when the pressure is on inside from fermenting, I think it forces itself out through that, but then the oxygen doesn't get back in. There. That's it. We're gonna go with it, so thanks for watching. Alright, time to unveil the results of our comfrey and other wild plant garden tea. I already took one batch out of it. So what you see on top is the mother, because this was a fermented process. And because of the fermentation process, all the minerals that were in the wild plants and then the other ingredients that I added have now been converted into a soluble form. Now it's anaerobic because it fermented. So then what we see, look at that, isn't that nice? If I stir it up a little bit, I'll get it darker. Oh, here comes some of the material up. That's good. We'll add some of that in there too. So now watch this. Look at that. Nice, rich, soluble mineral garden tea for watering soil life. So because it's anaerobic, I'm going to add some rainwater to this. When I'm just doing general watering, I put in 2 of these kettlefuls for every, these are like 4-gallon buckets. Let's see, I'm putting them in the buckets here. Oops. You don't want to get any on you because it's kind of fermenty. It smells like farm-raised sauerkraut. So the next thing I want to show you is how I add oxygen to it. This is my water tank for the garden, and there's the valve where the water comes out right here. That's it. I don't have it yet. Wrong way. There's the valve where the water comes out. Can't see what I'm doing. The screen is backwards. I just put these, I got a little slant right here in the soil, and that's where the water is going to shoot to. And watch this. There, now it's oxygenated. I actually splashed some on me, so now I'm going to smell like this all day long. There. Now it's time to apply. There I am, Permaculture Designer, using garden tea to water his garden beds. Oh, just look at how rich this stuff is. Look at that. That is rich. richly deserving of being poured on totally natural garden beds. Get this bed watered. We've got a rogue tomato growing here. Come up all by itself. And now I'm watering part of the bed that has nothing growing anymore. This was garlic here, and I pulled the garlic out. Now the question is, why would I want to water a garden bed that has nothing growing in it? I have to think about this a little bit, identify what is in the soil. Since I don't use any chemical fertilizers, what there is in my soil is life, all types of life. From earthworms all the way down to the tiniest microscopic animals that, man, you can't even see some of this stuff with a 600 power microscope. Because I'm not killing it off with chemicals, I have a lot of life in this bed and it needs to be watered. Because it's the secretions of soil life that will feed our garden plants. That is the fertilizer. And that is your permaculture lesson for the day. I guess it bears repeating. I've got to be watering the pots, and I have pots planted with potato plants throughout my main crop gardens here within the confines of the fencing so the deer don't come and eat them. So far the voles haven't figured out to jump in the pot that there's potatoes in there. And you got to make sure I water them often when it's not raining because they can dry out pretty fast. Well, I got to save some for the beets over here. I got a nice little patch of beets growing together with leeks. I got to get some water on those. It looks luscious. So we got to water these pot potatoes often when we don't get much rain, and even when we do get rain, they're kind of limited as to how much they can catch. And here I am, I'm going to water another bed that nothing's planted in. This is one that has already grown a batch of potato onions. Again, I'm feeding or watering. I'm watering and feeding both because this is garden tea mix. Soil life. Bucket here has a little bit of water and a banana peel, and the banana peel kind of ferments in the water and attracts flea beetles, and the flea beetles jump in and drown. Pretty nifty. So this is the tomato wall that I had made a video about. A couple of them actually, and there. These plants here, these tomato plants, and plus there's pepper plants, and there's Swiss chard. I already harvested peas out of here, and elephant garlic and garlic. And there's some fennel back here, but they're all growing in beehive boxes, so it's elevated off of the ground. And these boxes can dry out pretty fast too, so you gotta water them when it's not raining. And even if it is raining, because it doesn't catch that much water. Although these boxes are open on the bottom, and they do have access to ground moisture, I still make sure they're well watered. I gotta water my sunflower over here. So here I am with my multi-headed sunflower, and one of these stems actually grew, the one on the top here grew 3 flower heads on it. Here's another one with 3, so that's 6. Here's another one with 3, that's 9. Here's one with 2, that's 11. Big one here by itself, that's 12. 13, 14, 15 flower heads on it. No, I didn't really grow this to harvest a lot of seeds out of it. It was mostly to feed my birds. You know, I'll probably get a few of them, but mainly to keep the birds going. And here I am with my garden tea mix, and it's getting a good, healthy dose of water. Garden tea. I got a zucchini plant growing here that I've been really messing with a lot. I've been cutting all the leaves off, but it's still growing zucchini. Look at that. Here's another one down there. I just put my foot on it, I didn't see. So far this has been one of the better ideas. I have large tree pots here that I'm growing purple proving potatoes in, and they're prolific. These, as far as the branching is concerned, they can grow quite high. So right now we're probably more than 3 feet tall. And last year I did this, I didn't put the chicken wire around it, and it actually created kind of a space problem because all these leaves and branches and stems, and they just laid over them, and they were 3 feet away from the pots. It took up a lot of space. So this year I decided to put this chicken wire around it, and it's around the entire 4 pots here, and now it's holding all these stems up, keeping them out of the path. And also I got an experiment in the back one. I planted a bunch of corn seeds, a paradise sweet corn. Planted 13 of them because they're old seeds, and only 4 of them sprouted. So I'm growing potatoes and corn out of this back pot. And why I say back pot is because the sun comes in from the south, and these lower potato branching, they get their sunlight even though the corn is higher than them, because the corn is behind them in relationship to the sunlight coming in. So it's working pretty good. So far the voles haven't figured out how to jump in there and get potatoes. They did with the sweet corn, or the sweet potatoes last year. They figured that one out. So I think at some point here, I think probably next couple days, I'm going to take all that straw off the top because I don't need the mulch anymore. And then I'll watch, and you can see they'll dig a hole. And you set a trap in front of that hole. Unbaited trap, because they don't really readily come to baited traps. So you're setting what's called a trail set in trappers' terms. You know they're going to go in that hole, so you make sure they have to go over your trap before they get in a hole. And then you catch them. I've caught almost all my voles that way. Very seldom I catch one in a baited trap. So this is one of my better ideas. Oh, and I also have a tomato plant growing in here. You see it sent the stem way over here, and then it's growing all the way up into this corn. It's almost as tall as the tallest corn. Another foot, and it's going to be as tall as the tallest corn. So we're using the corn as a tomato trellis. So just think of this. In this little spot of 4 pots. Now I am using my own homemade compost, and I am watering with my garden tea. So that might be some differences here because of that. Because it's so rich with minerals. But just look at this area here. It's just a little area. It's probably 3 foot in diameter. It's maybe a little more, maybe 3.5 feet in diameter, and it's going to grow all these potatoes. It's going to give me crops of tomatoes, which they're sun golds and are really sweet, by the way. And I'm going to get a meal of sweet corn, just in that one little spot. So people can do this right on their balcony. Isn't that just amazing? Okay, now you're going to see why this is such a good idea. As you noticed in the beginning of the video, I put a plywood board, which is right there. I put a rack on it, and as the material fermented, it was compressed into the bottom of this barrel. So the two positives that I can draw from this is, one, we're not getting all this material in our pails. We're getting some, but not all of it. So we can reuse it. Look at that, isn't that nice and rich? Reusing it is simply a matter of just filling this back up with rainwater, leaving it sit for 3-4 days. And the other positive, which I was really surprised to find out this last spring when I started my new compost, is I decided to not take the material out last year, and I left it in the barrel. And then for the winter time, I went ahead and began to use it to store our kitchen waste. So we had this material on the bottom of the barrel, this compressed. Of course, I took the rock out and everything, and I just started throwing the kitchen waste in there. And I filled the barrel up with kitchen waste, and it froze because it's winter time. When I opened it up, the kitchen waste fermented along with the fermented material, and all the material was still rather green because it was fermented. I was able to use it as the green material ingredient in an aerobic compost pile. That was really cool. So all those minerals that are in those plants, plus the extras that I added, now all were added to the compost that I made. Of course, then the compost goes in my pots or in my new circle beds that I'm experimenting with. And then the next year I take them out of the pots and then I add them to my garden beds. So there's a timing sequence here of garden tea to compost to growing potatoes in pots to garden beds. Isn't that nice? So this is the last two I'm going to take out of here. What I'm doing here, oxygenating with rainwater. I'm diluting the material, extending it. I don't want the plants to grow that fast. Really fast growing plants have less nutrition. So one more step to do. We'll show you in a bit. Now for the final step. We're going to refill the barrel. Alright, elevate the bucket here so we get a stiff pour. Get it mixed up good. Growing season, I don't really want to get a lot of nitrogen into the trees, so I'll use this one for watering trees. The other one I'll begin to use for watering the fall garden plants. It has a lot of nitrogen in it. So at least I'm assuming so. I'm not a scientist. I'm not running this on any scientific basis. I'm just doing it on instinct. Trial and error, see what happens. But the other barrel, I've already done, I think, 6 or 7 exchanges of water on it. This is only the second one that we did on this barrel. So, last year I got 5 out of just wild plants, and then you could see the solution was beginning to be diluted, where the one with the compost manure in it, the compost, mostly compost tea, this I'm calling garden tea. The compost tea, I've had 6 changes and it's still just as dark as can be. So I think that's good. And then as I get more exchanges in it, I think the nitrogen is going to diminish and I can start to use it for the garden beds, even though we're in past the fall growing season. So that's the video. I had enough. I'm going to seal this up and go in and have me a cup of coffee. This twist on cover is essential because it seals the pressure in and minimizes the smell, because the first couple days, actually the first week or 10 days, it can get kind of a strong sulfur smell. So the very first barrel I did, I used a plastic bag to put over the top, and that still didn't help too much. So when I found these screw-on lid barrels, that did the trick. You can smell it a little bit right along the edges, but you can't notice it 3 feet away. That's pretty nice. So that's it. Thanks for watching.